So what makes a good captain or leader?
It's a good question, isn't it? I think there are a huge amount of kind of attributes, and there are lots of characteristics that do make good captains that you don't necessarily have to have all of them. It might be impossible to have all of them to be all at once. When I picture a good captain, I think of someone who is kind of the glue that's holding everything together on court. They are leading by example. They are making sure the team remains kind of positive and focused, and not necessarily kind of shouty or kind of dictating play necessarily, but someone who's keeping the team together and is working hard.
How does your style of leadership fit into that? How would you lead a team or a group?
It's very difficult, I would say, in korfball, particularly in the Scottish kind of first division, because most of our coaches are player coaches. So the captain, a lot of the time, the captain feels like another coach. So you're thinking about it from kind of you have a multi kind of faceted approach to this game. You are thinking tactically, you're thinking on behalf of your team, you are thinking like, how is this section working? You are also trying to focus on your own game and trying to keep your players kind of motivated and on task and doing the things that you need to do to win. I think I would like to think that my approach is the things that are the things that I described, leading by example and staying calm. But I think it can be difficult to do that. And I think I'll be the first to admit that there are times when I get a bit carried away. I think the types of player that kind of push themselves forward to that are quite often ones that are pretty set on winning, quite competitive types, I would say. And in close games, I think being a good captain is about keeping calm and keeping your own emotions in check as much as it is about anything else, really, remaining level-headed.
Is there time to get excited? Is there a time to raise your voice and point fingers? Or is it always just best to be mellow and calm? And
I would say there is absolutely a time to get excited. I think I would say it's when it's going well. Is a time you have an opportunity to fire up your team a little bit, and if that means raising your voice and getting involved and clapping and cheering and trying to G up your team, I think that is the team that I would be. That is the time that I would probably be a bit more outgoing. I think when it's going poorly, I don't think there is necessarily benefit to pointing fingers at that point. I don't know what positive outcome comes of accusing or accusatory gestures or words in general. I think more often than not, when players make mistakes on the court, they are aware that they are making mistakes. And I'm not sure highlighting that in front of the team is necessarily going to change that. If they aren't aware that they're making mistakes, then it might be that you have to have a word that you're trying to coach them through it. You're trying to talk to them about what mistakes they are making. But I think 90% of the time, if you are playing at a good level of sport, when mistakes are made, people know perfectly well that they are what they are responsible for. So I don't really think calling them out at that point will help them recover from that mistake.
There's no Mike Bassett, England manager, teacup smashing, expletive.
I do not think. I think that's certainly not my style. I would probably describe that style as a bit old-fashioned, really. I think that idea of the Alex Ferguson throwing a boot at, was it Beckham? He threw a boot at Beckham in the changing room or something like that, halftime. Maybe he did, maybe didn't, but I don't see a lot of that in korfball, and I think that's positive. That is good that we don't see a lot of that, because I don't think it encourages people to engage with the sport, and I don't think it encourages people to do better necessarily. I think it probably just winds them up.
Who's the best captain that you've played against, that you come up against, or that you've seen on TV or something?
I was thinking about this. The person I think of, and I don't like myself for it, as I think of kind of a great captain, is actually Sam Warburton, who was the Wales rugby captain for about a few years ago. He retired, but he was a flanker, and you could just see every time he was on the pitch, the whole team played better, because he was playing at a level that was just three stages beyond everyone else, and everyone else raised their game around him. I'm an England rugby fan. I used to hate playing Wales, because especially when Sam Warburton was captain, just because you could see he had this, I don't know, there was something about him, and it's very hard to identify like from a distance from the TV. But the whole team seemed to play better when he was on, when he was playing. Everyone around him seemed to raise their game. Fairly unquantifiable, I'm afraid.
What about in korfball?
Against, I think the type of captain that I wouldn't want to play against is maybe a slightly different type of captain to the type of captain that I would necessarily want to be or have. The type of player that you don't want to play against is the person probably who'll do literally anything to win. And sometimes that might bring out the worst in members of your own team. So if you're playing someone that is a little bit confrontational or a little bit up front in the referee's ear, this kind of stuff, and they can be very hard to play against, because they start to psych out the rest of your team as well. Those aren't necessarily my captain, but they're very hard to play against.
What does the captain do that nobody else does? Why is the captain important?
The captain is important because, sorry, I couldn't help but laugh then, because I asked my fiance this question. I essentially said, you know, what going on this podcast, what I talk about? And she said, captain pretty much just does the coin toss, don't they? And that was it. And I was like, oh, I can't say that. That's like, well, I think that's exactly the opposite of what we probably want to talk about.
I've played some captains who are absolute tossers.
So, I don't know if the captain necessarily does do anything that no one else can. I think because you can change the captain and have a similar effect, but being the captain in of itself kind of gives you a role that you have to fill. I don't think they necessarily are doing anything that no one else can do. I think, but by making someone the captain, you give them a kind of aura at times, or a position of responsibility which they have to live up to.